A very warm welcome. You're watching the biggest exclusive tonight with me, Aiyshwarya Swaroop. And tonight, let's raise some big questions now. Are our Netas guilty of tokenism when it comes to Dalits or even minorities? Are these minorities or Dalits just used as vote banks for political parties at election time or in the run-up to elections? Now, you may ask, why am I raising these questions? The answer is, the state of Karnataka is all set for assembly election in 2023, and perhaps that's what explains why the leader of opposition, Siddaramaiah, thought doling out cash worth 2 lakh rupees will compensate those 4 people injured during the violence in Kerur earlier this month. A Muslim woman who happens to be a family member of one of those injured hurled the money back at the former Chief Minister of Karnataka. She was visibly angry and said that she doesn't want the money and that these politicians only visit when they need to. Clearly, money cannot replace empathy. And that's what we are going to now talk about. What exactly happened during those moments? What led to that angry action by that Muslim woman? First, of course, up is Siddaramaiah meeting those who were injured in those communal clashes. Remember, those communal clashes happened on 6th and 7th of July. The situation was very, very tense in Kerur. Having said that, he also met the kith and kin of those family members. Now, the other visual is of that angry Muslim woman who was offered the money, and the other family members along with her refused to accept the money that was being offered by Siddaramaiah. Their anger is that nobody came to meet them when they were expected to. Siddaramaiah offering that money to that Muslim lady who visibly looks very angry. And the last thing she did as an expression of her anger was to hurl that money back at Siddaramaiah as his car moved on. That's the wad of cash worth 2 lakh rupees. That's the anger hurled back in the form of 2 lakh rupees. And that's the big question that we are posing to you now. Sidhu Cash, self-goal, will Netas learn their lesson or not? And this is the question we'll be asking our guests as well. But we'd like to bring you a report from Ground Zero first.
ವಾಪಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತಾ, ಇದು ಮಾನವೀಯತೆಯಿಂದ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ಅದು ನಾವು ಅವರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ.
Before I introduce my panelists to the dais today, let me also pose a question to our viewers. Call us and share your views. The question is, can Netas replace empathy with cash? Share your views with us on 0120-434-1895 as we open our lines to the callers. And with that, let me also introduce our guests. I'm joined in by Aiyshwarya Mahadev, who is the Congress spokesperson, Mohan Vishwa, who is the BJP spokesperson, and Professor Chandan Gowda, who is a political analyst and professor of the ISEC Institute for Social and Economic Change. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining this discussion today. Aiyshwarya Mahadev, if I could begin with you. Currently, the leader of opposition, also the former chief minister of the state, he's been snubbed on camera for doling out cash worth 2 lakh rupees. What was Mr. Siddaramaiah thinking?
Good evening, Akansha. I think before this incident, the one thing that's very important to be spoken about is the context of what has happened. And I think this action, or rather this unrest, is symptomatic of the larger problem in Karnataka of communalism. Because if you look at it, this was the outburst after the Kerur violence. Mr. Siddaramaiah himself has clarified that this money was just mere compensation. It does not make up for the loss. It does not make up for the injury in any manner or such. And this way of showcasing a tiny portion of what has happened is also very problematic, to be very honest, Akanksha. The idea was that there was communal tension, there was communal violence. The lady who threw the money back said she wanted peace and security. And then on his part, legislator, he has spoken to the DC, he has spoken to the ministers, he has spoken to absolutely everybody to ensure that speedy and adequate justice is provided.
Aiyshwarya, we will talk about that communal clash as well. We will also discuss the role and the responsibility of the state government. But I'm going to ask you, what kind of compensation are we talking about? Hard cash?
It is about the fact that, again, from an MLA's fund or from the government, or if you're an elected representative, there is money that can be allocated for compensation in terms of any sort of medical injury. This happens a lot of time, or even medical treatment costs are borne by an MLA through his funds. And this idea of hard cash being given
but you don't agree that the manner in which it was just hurled at the woman at the point when she was leaving, this perhaps could have been done in a more formal sort of manner, perhaps in the form of checks. If it is a compensation, sort of a formal compensation coming in, why not use checks?
You know, you talk about the formality of it, but where we come from in the rural back of beyond, it is cash that is obviously more convenient, especially for women whose breadwinners are now in the hospital and their access to formal finance. But besides that point, it was not anything that was hurled at anybody. Mr. Siddaramaiah stood there, held the lady's hand, said, "I'm very sorry for what has happened," after having visited the hospital, and gave her that money. This idea of him being arrogant and whatnot, her
No. We are not calling him arrogant, but what it certainly has come across as tokenism. I'm going to also bring in Mr. Mohan Vishwa. Mr. Mohan Vishwa, how do you view what's happened in Bagalkot today? Many are viewing this as tokenism. What is it if it's not tokenism?
See, Akanksha, it's a tight slap on the appeasement politics made by Mr. Siddaramaiah and Congress in the state of Karnataka, or rather throughout India. Mr. Siddaramaiah, why did he went to Bagalkot district to visit his constituency, Badami, like his boss, Rahul Gandhi, who often visits or very, rarely visits Wayanad? Mr. Siddaramaiah also visits his constituency. That too, he visited just by looking at those communal angles. He never wanted to visit for the sake of development. Just because there was one religion which was under trouble, to take that mileage or to take a vote bank of that, he just visited there. It's not that to solve the problem. So that was very clearly. And I heard that Aiyshwarya was telling that, it's a rural area where the cash will be given.
No, then what is the problem? Aiyshwarya, what do you think perhaps angered the woman?
Let me finish.
All right, Mohan Vishwa, go on. Let Mohan finish. Let Mohan finish.
Yeah, Akanksha, I want to finish. I want to give you one more example. Mr. Siddaramaiah's colleague Jamir Ahmad Khan, who is in Bangalore, urban, who represents Chamrajpet constituency, where you have access to all banking facilities, carries 500 rupees notes, 2000 rupees notes in his pocket, and openly he distributes to his voters on the street. So those videos are also available. Come on, what kind of statement she is making here? She can't say that, just there was no banking facility has given the cash. So she should accept the fact that it's a tight slap on the appeasement politics made by Congress. Mr. Siddaramaiah, that too.
Aiyshwarya, let me now bring